the joys of the market these days, you can pump out an exploration target so from this 31 million ounce inferred resource that you've got, you've set an exploration target of 559 to 774 million ounces. So it's about 20 times the chalk resource you got. Is that a function of the strike that you've got and the potential drilling you've got upcoming? Now you've got a bit of cash in the bank. How'd you come to that number?
This is general advice and my opinions only. This episode's company has paid me for this interview. I may be long, short, or hold an interest in stocks or CFDs mentioned. Past performance isn't reliable. The interviewee's views are their own, not necessarily mine. LEVRD operates as a corporate authorised representative 00131 8377 under AFSL 548573. You can find our financial services guide via the LEVRD website, link in the show notes.
Stop loss aiders. We've got, how do we explain this one? We haven't got Dom Dollar. We've got the next best. We've got Dom Duggan from Patriot Resources. MD, mate, it was Patriot Lithium. You've now got Peruvian silver, Zambian copper. What is this company? What is the flagship?
Well, firstly, g'day, Matty. Thanks for having us online. Look, the flagship is absolutely Peruvian silver. There's been a bit of a journey with the company over the years. It originally IPO'd on lithium, Patriot Lithium, which was focused around Canada, North America, in the lithium boom in 2022. And they rode the wave there. They had some great ground. We've still got some really good holdings up there in Ontario. But with the lithium price sort of falling and dropping back in 23, 24, some pretty big headwinds in that market, the company pivoted. So it picked up some ground in Zambia. And we'll probably touch on it a bit later. Hugh and Chris, the other directors of the company, have done a lot of work with Sinomine in the past, and Sinomine are establishing a big copper project there. So I picked up some ground around that. And so that was sort of the initial pivot out of the sort of lithium space, and as we divested a lot of the ground in North America. And then earlier this year, we picked up a more advanced stage project in Peru, the Tassa project. So that's a silver dominant project. And we published a maiden resource on that earlier in the year. So yeah, look, we're a silver company with some lithium legacy, but yeah, it's definitely silver and Tassa is the focus.
Copper option in Zambia, let's say. Yeah. We'll get into it, no doubt. Mate, you had 900 grand in the bank when we were prepping for this, but you've just come out of Holt, raised about $3 at 5.5 cents. We're trading at 6.1, so you've regenerated the coffer a bit. So, mate, we'll get on to Tassa first. We'll go to the flagship, the Peruvian silver. So, got it up on screen here, and it's in a, I guess you staked it, Tassa 7th of August. That's Tassa 5. So, yeah, and you lifted the landholding from you got about 1,800 hectares now. So, how is this ground available? Because it's in and around Buenaventura, probably pronounced that wrong, Teck, Barrick, Fresnillo, they all hold packages around you. So how did you get a hold of this one?
Yeah, it was good. It's got a bit of a story behind it. So it was originally with Bear Creek, an American mining company. They did the early work back in 2010, 2012, did about 8,500 metres of diamond drilling on the project. They then made a discovery of the Coriani project. That became their focus, and Coriani's the largest undeveloped silver project in the world. And so that was their focus for a long time. So they optioned Tassa out to Teck in 2020. Teck did a bit of work on it, but then relinquished the option. And then Bear Creek got taken over by Highlander Silver, and this came out to us just before the takeover. So great opportunity for us to bring it into Patriot and onto the ASX. A lot of work to do, but fortunately we've inherited a great data set, a great technical library from multiple operators over about a 15-year period. So like I said, we published a maiden resource on it. Then we integrated all the historical data sets, the surface sampling, the geophysics, IP and the mag work that was all done. And so, lots to do. I'm going to keep us really busy, but great part of the world, and pretty exciting opportunity for us.
That what I'm showing on screen here. So you're in the pink and pretty much on the outskirts of. How do you pronounce that? Buenaventura. Is that right?
Buenaventura.
Yeah. Oh, I've done all right there. Well done, Matt.
Yeah.
Mate, 31.4 million ounces silver equivalent at 52.6 grams per tonne silver equivalent. Take me through that resource. Is that a foreign resource you inherited? How much silver is in that compared to the gold, et cetera, that makes up the equivalent? What's the rundown?
Yeah, so it's a JORC. So we published a JORC resource on it based on the historic core. Once we got access to that, Eugene, our chief geo, went over with some other local geologists, and then we integrated that together and had an independent report published. It's 81% silver, so it's genuinely silver dominant. It's not all these sort of polymetallic sort of exotic credits that we sort of see. So yeah, 42.5 grams a tonne silver only. And then it gets to about 88% when you include the gold. So about 90% silver gold, and then the remainder copper, lead, zinc, all starting from surface over about a 2.9 kilometre footprint. And like you touched on before, you're obviously very abreast of our news. We extended the footprint to the south. So the southern zone at Tassa, we were sort of constrained by the licence boundary. And there was a tenement that came up there that was free that we pegged there. So that bottom purple one on the screen where the star is, we put an application in for that and was successful. So that just gives us a bit of extra optionality to extend our work there, and so that we're not constrained by the licence boundary. And it's quite gold dominant in the south, so that's quite exciting for us. Pretty surprised that it wasn't part of the original package of concessions there that we got as part of the project, but it was certainly when we were having a look at it and when we were on the ground there, we thought it'd be very attractive to bring in and sort of package it up together. It extends the strike to about 3.1 kilometres. So really, really interesting.
Is that what we're looking on screen here? Is that sort of that cross section with the gold zone a bit deeper, the silver zone up the top? Is that a pretty good representation of what that ore body looks like over that 3 kilometres?
Yeah, we can't quite call it an ore body just yet, but the mineralisation, it's consistent across all the drill holes. It's silver dominant at surface, and then it becomes gold at south. So we sort of see gold at depth. So we see that zonation through it quite consistently across all 26 drill holes. Where we see that silver towards the surface, but then they all become sort of quite gold dominant at depth, quite clustered drilling around. And so that's the opportunity for us, is to sort of infill between the zones and try and connect as much as possible at that surface and at depth as well, part of a phase 1 drilling program.
Yeah, because that I guess that resource, so you had 26 historical holes. The JORC resource is all inferred at this stage, but the joys of the market these days, you can pump out an exploration target so from this 31 million ounce inferred resource that you've set an exploration target of 559 to 774 million ounces. So it's about 20 times the JORC resource you got. Is that a function of the strike that you've got and the potential drilling you've got upcoming? Now you've got a bit of cash in the bank. How'd you come to that number?
Yeah, look, and it wasn't me that sort of plucked that number out of the sky. There was a bit of science behind it. So yeah, we had that independently prepared. Once we published the resource and we inherited the full data set and took custody of all the surface samples, over 1,800 surface samples and multiple rounds of geophysics on the property. We had an independent geologist, compile that based on all the data sets to provide, a conceptual exploration target of what we could potentially be looking at. The mineralisation itself and the style that was interrogated, I suppose, is quite structurally controlled, and it does align. The drilling does align with the geophysics signatures that we've seen. So it's all an integration of all the multi sort of tools that we have from a geological perspective to publish that conceptual target. And then obviously as we'll start drilling, we'd hope that a lot of that would start to come into the resource. But it's all in front of us. But that's the sort of number that was spat out from that consultant. And we're happy with it. And obviously reviewed by our chief geologist, Eugene. And so we're happy to put that out to the market and just sort of show everyone the potential, size of the prize there.
If we're looking in that region, you've got, how does 700 million ounces at, say, 50 grams per tonne silver equivalent compare to some of these other projects in this Peruvian silver area?
Well, it's tough because we'd have to compare exploration target to exploration target. Unfortunately, it's not a resource just yet. But certainly, if a resource of that size, it'd be incredibly competitive in terms of total contained silver. At the moment, it's only 31.5 million ounces silver equivalent. But certainly, getting up into the 100 million ounces would be a really, really good result for us. Based on some what we think is a couple of drill programs that might get us there, which would be good. But certainly in terms of silver operations in the region, I think Coriani's about 300 million ounces, and that's in project development. That's fully permitted. San Gabriel, that's a majority gold mine, but 1.8 million ounces. I think 3.7 grams a tonne gold. It'd be a pretty significant project. And what we also like about it is that it's all starting from surface. So I think that sort of down the track, if we get to sort of a study phase, I think that makes it quite interesting that it's high grade starting from surface.
Is that so in that region? Where was that first one you mentioned? Where's that one operating at or in development?
Coriani is probably just off the map, maybe another sheet of paper, top right hand side. So it's sort of north of us. And that's Highlander Silver, and that was subject to the Bear Creek Highlander acquisition earlier in the year.
Yep. And San Gabriel, so that's in development, did you say, or operating?
Yeah, that came into production November 25. So late last year, they poured first gold. I think it's an underground sub-level stope operation, but we can see it sort of directly across the valley, and there's certainly a lot of infrastructure in the region that's sort of come in to support that development. So it's quite a favourable jurisdiction for mining.
Is it a pretty undeveloped region? A lot of prospectivity at the moment, not as many operating in compared to a Chile or something like that.
It's probably more described as like a different type of mineralisation to what Chile is in terms of like the big copper moly porphyries that are sort of exist in Chile and in sort of slightly other part of Peru. Whereas this is more sort of epithermal type systems. Picture project, which is Mammoth, is sort of about 20 k's away from us, just north of San Gabriel there. So they were looking for some copper porphyries there, and they've sort of done a lot of work over the last couple of years with sort of expanding their license holding and looking at other styles of mineralisation in the region. They're in the orange on the map there.
Yep. So that the community side, mate. I saw that you secured the community agreement for the northern Tassa surface exploration. So I assume is that top pink dot there, pink square there.
Yeah. So the northern portion of that purple, that's a Pachamama community, and so we're really fortunate that we've got a good relationship with Tassa and the Pachamama communities, and we announced that we've got an initial agreement in place with them to commence surface sampling program while we work through the remainder of the community agreement to enable drilling. We've had a number of meetings, myself and Diego, our non-executive director, with the Tassa board and the wider Tassa community assembly. And so, it's ongoing. So we're looking forward to sort of wrapping that out and hopefully getting into a phase 1 drilling program.
So I assume with the northern part being granted, you could say everything's sort of heading in the right direction towards that maiden drilling program.
Yeah, look, that's why we're very hopeful. It's all required. It's all part of the process. In these parts, or in sort of anywhere where you want to sort of operate drill rigs or, work on exploration programs, the community relations, community agreements, and that sort of social license is incredibly important. So we've just got to make sure that we do that in a way that's respectful to all the communities out there, and really take time to listen and take on feedback to ensure that, we're able to work together to support everyone.
I think I wore similar clothes when I went to South America, mate. I've just got you on screen here while you're in Peru itself.
Yeah, it was pretty cold. That was out in early June, so it's about 4,000 meters in elevation. Quite cool in the mornings. But yeah, such a great community. Was really lucky to be invited up to the school, and we donated some new sports uniforms to kids there. That was just a great privilege to be, and spent time with the teachers, and I actually had a recess there and a cup of coffee with everyone after we did that. So no, it was a great time.
When you bought Tassa, so Bear Creek, they sort of called it non-core. Sold it in December for $3.5 million US. So, and Teck walked away. Do you think, I guess, was it just a real good opportunity to, with a couple of big companies walking away and it was available? Do you consider you got it pretty cheap for what's there?
Yeah, we certainly think so. Probably more to do with the macro climate as well around silver price. So while Bear Creek and Teck, operating the project, silver was about 20 an ounce. So towards the end of last year, it's creeping up towards 40 an ounce, and then early in this year, we saw silver, absolutely take off. So, it was a very different macro for silver, between now and then. So, timing, but we also think that, the fundamentals of the project, regardless of what the silver price is, it's a great project. And we were very, very fortunate to have the asset come into us, and to inherit that sort of, huge data set that it came with. We without speaking out of turn, because it's hard to sort of not know what was going on, within those companies at the time. We've heard that Teck, might have been looking a little bit more closely at the base metals in the resource. So there is, silver, silver dominance, but there's a bit of lead, bit of zinc, bit of copper, and maybe it didn't quite have the sort of fundamentals that the Teck were looking for. I know they're sort of looking more around, copper discoveries, and this might not have had enough copper for them. And then obviously, as we spoke about before, Bear Creek were very much focused on the Coriani silver project. So, an unloved non-core asset that, found a home with us.
There, because you've paid you've paid US $500,000 already, that 6-month milestone. There's another US $1 million due at 18 months, and then $1.5 million at 30 months. This cap raise you've done, bringing in another $3 million, I guess how much are you thinking is going to be going towards milestone payments, keeping that in the bank, versus that maiden drilling program?
Well, we've fortunately got a fair bit of runway in front of us before the next milestone's due. So we've cleaned that out, from the last quarter, made those milestone payments, paid the annual concession fees. So we've got 12 months before that's due again. So our main focus now is drilling and the community agreement. So once the community agreement's in place and we commence drilling, then it's, as much as we can convert into the resource, and hopefully doing a resource upgrade by the end of the year. That'd be, put us in a really good stead prior to having the next milestone payment due, in 12 months from today.
And then because you've also got the share milestone payments to the vendors of the project, and they trigger at an indicated resource. So you've already got 31 million ounces of inferred, but they convert on an indicated resource of 10 million, 25 million and 35 million ounces. So is that when your MRE update at the end, that could be potentially triggering some of those share payments as well?
Yeah, potentially. It's more of an outcome, not an input so much to the parameters of what we'd be looking to drill, and how we'd sort of tackle this in terms of resource growth. So, naturally over time we'd probably see more coming into the higher confidence categories, particularly down the track if we look to go towards studies and PFS and things like that. So it's certainly we're not looking to design the drill programs and things like that purely to look after the vendor milestone sort of share considerations. We'd be looking at it from a technical point of view of, how can we get as much drilling done that brings as much as possible into the resource. And, as an outcome of that, if it does trigger those payments, then they're non-cash. And it would be reflected that, the asset has hopefully, become more valuable because we've added more ounces into it.
Mate, let's get on to the copper. What is happening in Zambia? How did this one come about?
Yeah, so there's a bit of work been happening in Zambia. Like I said, Hugh and the guys have been working there for about 2 years now. They picked up the original tenements or the original licenses there around Mumbwa, which was the original sort of copper discovery in Zambia about 100 years ago. And then a lot of the focus went up to the copper belt, and then sort of a lot of interest has come back into around where we are in the last couple of years with Sino Mine. So, yeah, we did a drill program, small RC program, about 2,000 metres on our 2715 licence, and made a discovery there. And we think it's probably one of the few genuine greenfields copper discoveries, in the last 12 months. Really, really pleased with the initial results from that program. And then we picked up another licence just a month ago up in the copper belt, sort of more towards the DRC border, which would be more sort of typical styles of mineralisations that people are familiar with in terms of Zambia and DRC. But that's quite early days. I've only done some sort of geological mapping on the ground after we acquired that licence. So, yeah, a lot of work to sort of look at how we approach this. In terms of the Zambia portfolio, it's quite a large land holding that we have there, about 500 square kilometres around Mumbwa, and then about 1,600 hectares up in the copper belt. So, a bit of work to do, but certainly really encouraging from an initial discovery point of view around Mumbwa, and then there's other optionality up in the copper belt.
Is that that one I got on screen there? Is that the discovery holes that you're talking about?
Yeah, so that was that's Tonic, which is formerly B1, where we did about 2,000 metres of RC drilling in sort of May, June this year, or sort of June. So probably the discovery holes, hole 3, where we had 17 metres at 0.4% copper, but it's probably more similar to the sort of sedimentary hosted copper belt style mineralisation that sort of typically run at sort of 0.5% copper. But what we think is quite exciting is we've got some higher grade shoots that sort of come in sort of metre intervals. So we get a metre at 2.5% copper, and then a couple of other holes where we get about 1.5% copper over a metre, and then another 1.5%. We've got this sort of broad sort of lowish grade copper that's quite consistent through it, but then we've got these sort of high grade shoots, and then also the polymetallic sort of almost similar to Tassa in a way, but not super similar, but where we see the lead and the zinc sort of zone, and then sort of a high grade copper silver core. So we get up to about 73 grams a tonne silver in it, and then some sort of cobalt at depth. So it's a bit of a soup, but quite interesting. And we've got obviously those higher grade sort of vector areas that we'd be make it pretty compelling as a sort of follow up drill target.
Is that it's pretty hard off bloody the 4 holes we're seeing on screen here, but because it goes from silver to copper, then some sides you've got zinc. Is it possibly a big sedimentary big blob, or it's going to be little veins everywhere? How do you sort of interpret the core so far?
Yeah, only rock chips thus far, but probably the better one is the plan view, where it's over quite a big length. It's about 1 kilometre by 800 metres in terms of a plan view, so quite a large area. We've only drilled a small portion of the middle of it, and that sort of copper mineralisation that we're seeing in that zone is quite fairly consistent throughout the holes that we've seen. And then we've got the IP, the geophysics that runs the full kilometre that looks fairly consistent. Our running assumption is that it's a sort of sedimentary hosted, sort of lowish grade, high volume sort of, but where we get the deeper sort of high grade sort of copper, smaller intervals, that's what we think is quite exciting, where it might have a bit of both. But certainly needs a lot more work and a bit of follow up drilling just to really drill it all out, and really understand that a little bit further. But we believe that we've got a fair bit of scale that we've mapped out there and mineralised strike from the surface work that we've done, and hopefully if we do some follow-up extension drilling, that might sort of define it a lot further.
Because you're right near Sino Mine's Katoomba deposit, so they've got a concentrator and a smelter. What's the knowledge of, I guess, that deposit, and are they looking for feed, or what's the relationship there?
Yeah, so fortunately, Hugh and Chris, the two directors, have spent a fair bit of time with Sino Mine over the years, and sort of picking up the licenses around it. That was our thinking, was that with a copper smelter being built there, that's a huge infrastructure advantage of any discovery. You don't have to ship a con hundreds of kilometres or internationally to have one right on your doorstep. Would be really, really attractive. So Katoomba is probably a pretty typical like ISCG type copper deposit. It's quite a depth. It sort of starts from a couple hundred metres below the surface, but there's also another target right next to it that hasn't had as much work done, but it's also on Sino Mine's license, called Target H, and that's more of a similar sort of polymetallic copper cobalt style of mineralisation. That's probably about 5 km from Katoomba and maybe 10 km north of us, sort of in between. So yeah, lots of different mineralisation styles in the region, and seems to be quite copper bearing. So yeah, with the infrastructure advantage, we think that there'd be a pathway. Should everything be amenable to working together, and flow sheets work out. We've obviously got a lot more drilling to do to even declare a resource, but that's our thinking, that if there's infrastructure in the region, it's a pretty big advantage.
The legacy stuff, mate, the lithium, Gorman, what I guess Patriot Lithium started as. You said there's an expression of interest process going on to sell those assets, or potentially extract some value out of those assets. What's happening there?
Yeah, so the Gorman, look, it is an incredible lithium opportunity from what's been mapped at surface. The Sawn channel samples, high grade lithium up to 3.7% lithium with tantalum and cesium in it, and then also 40 kilometres away from a new Pac Spark lithium project and conversion facility that's being built in Thunder Bay in Ontario. So yeah, we've done a strategic review over all our data sets that we hold over that. We've collected a huge amount of surface samples, and yeah, as we announced, we're looking for a partner running an expressions of interest over that, just to be able to have someone that can sort of focus on that and really look at optimizing value out of it, because we think there's a logical conclusion there. That those incremental tons, should there be a discovery, are always really valuable to an existing infrastructure or an infrastructure plant that's being developed in the future. So that's our thinking there, and we'll release the full set of sort of technical data that sits behind that to support that process.
Very good. Final, mate, before we get on what's coming up, you're tied up with Next Investors now. So 8th of May, you issued essentially 500 grand worth of stock at a 28% premium. Take us through the pros and cons of going down this road compared to, engaging investor relations for 6 grand cash a month.
Yeah, maybe it's Matty Michael's new investor relations model that could be coming out.
I'll take 500 grand worth of stock any day.
Well, there's probably two pieces of this. So the Next Investors guys, they invested 500 grand into us. So we got 500 grand of cash from them at a premium to the share price. So that's same as doing any other equity raise or placement on the market. Probably the key difference that here was it was at a premium rather than a discount, and there's no costs in that. So that's what was a pretty commercial success there to increase our cash balance at the time by 500 grand and issuing new shares. But then also second to that, there is the investor relations and marketing arrangement where we issued new shares to, in addition to the 10 million that they subscribe to, for marketing arrangements for those guys. And we've We're so happy to have the Stocks Digital guys, Next Investors, with us. We spent a lot of time working with them around the sort of due diligence side before this all sort of came about. And it's been great having them on board. There's many different ways to sort of skin the cat in terms of marketing and investor relations, but we've sort of seen the reach that those guys have, and then also sort of networks and things. And we work quite closely with them, and been really, really appreciative of their sort of broader perspective on things.
Yeah. Okay. So that works out about what, 400 grand worth of stock that was issued to them for 2 years of IR. Why? Yeah. How'd the investing at a 28% premium? They obviously is that how this world works? So we want the investor relations deal, we'll put some money into you at a premium. Is that sort of how these negotiations work?
I'm not too sure. In terms of their history, I know that this is their largest ever investment that they've made in a company. So we think that sort of talks a lot around the fundamentals that sit behind Tassa. Obviously, they're really, really focused on silver at the moment, and as are we. So the silver macro environments is something that they're really, really getting behind. So I think the fundamentals are there for Tassa, and then also to leverage their investor relations and marketing sort of reach as well to get the Tassa story out, and in front of people is really beneficial.
Very good. Right, mate. Next 12 months, what are your big ticket items? What can we expect for next news flow?
So certainly having the new community agreement with the Pachimo community in the short term, that'll allow us to get on the ground at Tassa. And then we'd be really hoping to land an agreement with the Tassa community to enable drilling, a phase 1 drilling program. And then a phase 1 drilling program would hopefully lead into a mineral resource update for Tassa. So as soon as we can sort of get the results back, flying out into the market, mineral resource update, which would be the first drilling on Tassa since 2012, which we'd be really, really excited for. And then separate to that, around the Zambia portfolio, potentially a phase 2 drilling program at Tonic, and then some geophysics work on the new license in the Copper Belt, with potentially some low cost drilling up there. Zambia is really, really cheap to do work. So that's the copper option. But for us, it's all focused on Tassa, and the community agreement with Tassa is the first port of call, and then into a phase 1 drilling program.
Yeah, so you do have the option of getting into Zambia up your sleeve. You can start drilling there anytime you want again.
Yep. Yeah. So, and then for a pretty attractive price as well.
Yeah. That bloody good overview. It'd be great to have you back on once you get that agreement, mate, and we'll bloody start pumping some holes in Peru. Best of luck, Cobbo. Thanks for coming on LEVRD.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for having us, and we'll have to have you up in Peru sometime. You can come and check it out.
I'll go try relighting a data over there. Love to, mate.
Bring the Winnie gold.
Cheers, Tom. Thank you very much, mate.
Thanks, Matty. See you, mate.